In the vast realm of human psychology, few things are as captivating or as unsettling as the discovery that our minds can be easily manipulated. We like to think we're in control of our thoughts, decisions, and perceptions, but the truth is far more complicated. Across centuries of research and real-world observation, scientists, psychologists, and illusionists alike have uncovered dozens of mental techniques and experiments that reveal the hidden levers of the human brain. In this journey through 60 of the most shocking psychological mind games ever documented, we'll explore manipulations used in experiments, military interrogations, therapy rooms, marketing campaigns, cult indoctrination, and even everyday conversations. These aren't just party tricks. They are insights into the very architecture of human consciousness, memory, emotion, and behavior. 1. The false memory trap. Imagine being absolutely certain you remember an event that never happened. Not only do you recall the details, you can picture it vividly. This is the foundation of the false memory phenomenon. In the 1990s, researchers like Elizabeth Loftus demonstrated that it's surprisingly easy to implant completely fabricated memories in people. In one study, participants were told a story about getting lost in a shopping mall as a child, a story that was completely untrue. Yet over time, many began to recall specific details of this fictional event confidently. This trick of the mind has profound implications. It has altered criminal trials, reshaped family histories, and called into question just how much of what we remember is real. Our brains, it seems, are not recording devices, they're storytellers. 2. The foot in the door technique. Would you let a stranger into your home to conduct a lengthy survey? Most people would say no. But what if, a week earlier, that same person had asked you a tiny favor, maybe just to sign a petition? In psychology, this is called the foot in the door technique, a persuasion tactic where agreeing to a small request increases the likelihood of agreeing to a larger one later. This method was famously demonstrated in a 1966 study where researchers asked homeowners to put a small sign in their window. Later, they asked if they could place a huge, unsightly billboard in the yard. Those who had agreed to the small request were far more likely to say yes to the big one. It's used by salespeople, politicians, cult leaders, and marketers. It's subtle, but devastatingly effective. 3. The obedience illusion. In 1961, psychologist Stanley Milgram conducted one of the most infamous experiments in history. Participants were told they were helping in a learning experiment. Their job was to deliver electric shocks to a learner, actually an actor, every time an incorrect answer was given. With each mistake, the voltage increased. What they didn't know, the shocks weren't real. Yet, under the pressure of authority, participants kept turning up the voltage, many to the maximum level, despite the screams and apparent unconsciousness of the learner. Milgram concluded that ordinary people are capable of extraordinary cruelty simply because an authority figure tells them to. This experiment has been repeated many times with similar results. It begs the question, how much of what we do is really our own decision? 4. The spotlight effect. Ever walked into a room and felt like everyone was looking at you? Psychologists call this the spotlight effect, our tendency to think we're being noticed more than we actually are. In reality, most people are too busy thinking about themselves to notice you. But this illusion can feed social anxiety and self-consciousness. Understanding the spotlight effect can free us from the fear of judgment, revealing just how little others are actually paying attention. 5. The door in the face technique. This is the flip side of the foot in the door. The door in the face tactic involves making a large, unreasonable request first, one that is almost certain to be denied. Then you follow it with a much smaller, more reasonable request. The surprising result? People are more likely to agree to the second request. It's as if rejecting the first offer makes them feel guilty or compelled to compromise. This technique works in everything from sales negotiations to parenting and even international diplomacy. 6. The illusion of choice. You walk into an ice cream shop. There are 24 flavors to choose from. You pick your favorite and feel like you made a totally free, personal choice. But what if the flavor you picked was placed at eye level? Or what if the lighting subtly made that color more appealing? Or if you saw someone just ahead of you choose the same one? Marketers and psychologists alike understand that choice can be manufactured. Studies have shown that people feel more satisfied when they believe they've chosen something freely, even if the options were heavily influenced or limited. 7. The mere exposure effect. The more we see something, the more we tend to like it. That's the mere exposure effect. Whether it's a song on the radio, a logo, or a person's face, repeated exposure increases our comfort and preference. This simple phenomenon is behind the relentless repetition of advertising jingles and political slogans. But it also explains why someone you initially disliked might start to grow on you the more you're around them. 8. The cognitive dissonance game. When our beliefs and behaviors clash, we experience discomfort. This is cognitive dissonance. To resolve the tension, we often change our beliefs rather than our actions. In a famous 1959 study, participants were asked to lie and say a boring task was fun. Those paid only $1 to lie later reported actually enjoying the task more than those paid $20. Why? Because $1 wasn't enough justification. Their minds had to resolve the inconsistency by genuinely changing their opinion. This psychological tug-of-war shapes everything from political beliefs to consumer behavior. 9. The anchoring bias. If I told you the average price of a car was $80,000 and then showed you a $30,000 car, it would seem like a bargain, even if that's not cheap at all. This is anchoring, our tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we receive when making decisions. It's why salespeople show the most expensive items first, why job offers start with high salary ranges, and why even numbers in negotiations are strategically chosen. 10. The sunk cost trap. You've invested time, money, or energy into something, a movie, a relationship, a project, and it's not working. But instead of walking away, you dig deeper, thinking, I've already come this far. This is the sunk cost fallacy, and it's one of the most costly mental traps we fall into. Rationally, past investment shouldn't influence future decisions, but emotionally, it's hard to let go. From casinos to business ventures, this fallacy keeps us locked in, hoping for a turnaround that rarely comes. 11. The bystander effect. In 1964, Kitty Genovese was murdered in New York City, while dozens of people reportedly heard or saw parts of the attack. No one intervened. Psychologists soon began studying what became known as the bystander effect, the tendency for individuals to avoid helping when others are present. The more people around, the less responsibility any one person feels. Each assumes someone else will help. It's a chilling truth about human nature that in moments of crisis, being in a crowd can actually make people less likely to act. 12. The pratfall effect. Perfection can be off-putting. But when someone capable or impressive makes a small mistake, spills coffee, forgets a name, they often become more likable. This is the pratfall effect. It's as if the stumble makes them more human, more relatable. Politicians, celebrities, even public speakers can become more endearing with a well-timed slip-up. Just enough to show vulnerability, but not so much that competence is questioned. 13. The Pygmalion effect. If a teacher believes a student is gifted, that student often performs better, even if the belief was based on nothing. This is the Pygmalion effect, or the self-fulfilling prophecy. Expectation becomes reality. Leaders who believe in their team's success foster higher performance. Parents who expect their children to behave respectfully often raise respectful kids. Belief, it seems, shapes behavior more than we realize. 14. The reverse psychology trick. Don't touch that button. Suddenly that's the only thing you want to do. Reverse psychology exploits our desire for autonomy. By telling someone not to do something, especially when they feel pressured or controlled, you often increase their desire to do it. This tactic is frequently used with children, but it's also surprisingly effective on adults when handled subtly. 15. The learned helplessness experiment. In the 1960s, psychologists Martin Seligman and Stephen Meyer conducted a series of controversial experiments with dogs. Some were placed in cages with electric shocks they couldn't escape. Later, even when escape was possible, those same dogs didn't try. They had learned to be helpless. This phenomenon, learned helplessness, applies to humans too. If someone repeatedly fails or faces trauma with no way out, they may stop trying even when a solution appears. It's a devastating insight into the long-term effects of powerlessness. 16. The Dunning-Kruger effect. The less people know, the more confident they often are. That's the essence of the Dunning-Kruger effect, named after psychologists who found that people with low ability tend to overestimate their skills, while experts often doubt themselves. This creates a paradox where the loudest voices may be the least informed, while true knowledge often whispers. 17. The scarcity principle. What's rare feels valuable. Limited time offers, sold-out concerts, exclusive clubs, all prey on the scarcity principle. Psychologically, when access is restricted, desire increases. It's not just about logic, it's about the fear of missing out. Marketers use this constantly. Only 3 left. Offer ends tonight. Whether it's romance, luxury goods, or information, scarcity drives urgency. 18. The broken window theory. If one window is broken and left unrepaired, soon others will be smashed. That's the theory behind urban decay and behavior called the broken window theory. It suggests that visible disorder, graffiti, litter, vandalism, encourages more disorder. Clean, orderly environments tend to foster respect and lower crime. Cities like New York famously adopted this philosophy in the 1990s to great effect. Though the theory remains debated, still, it speaks to how our environment shapes our behavior in subtle but powerful ways. 19. The halo effect. We tend to assume that if someone is good at one thing, or physically attractive, they're good at other things too. This is the halo effect. It's why attractive people are often assumed to be smarter, funnier, or kinder. It's why a celebrity's opinion on politics might be taken seriously, even if they have no background in it. Our brains love shortcuts, and the halo effect is one of the most influential. 20. The gaslighting game. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where someone makes you question your reality. It might begin subtly. Are you sure you turned off the stove? And escalate to denying facts you know are true. Over time, victims can lose confidence in their memories, their perceptions, even their sanity. It's often used in abusive relationships, but also in cults, workplaces, and political rhetoric. Named after the 1944 film Gaslight, it's one of the most insidious psychological games, and one of the hardest to recognize when you're in it. 21. The conformity pressure. In a now famous experiment by Solomon Asch, participants were asked to match line lengths. When placed in a group where everyone gave the wrong answer, individuals often conformed, even when they clearly knew it was wrong. This conformity effect reveals just how powerful social pressure can be. Even when we know better, we often follow the crowd, afraid to stand out, or convinced that the group must know something we don't. 22. The liking bias. People are more easily persuaded by people they like, and we tend to like those who are similar to us, compliment us, or are physically attractive. This is the liking principle, a core part of persuasion psychology. Salespeople are trained in this. Mirror your tone, find common ground, flatter gently. It's not deception, it's a recognition that rapport opens minds. 23. The fear then relief technique. This manipulation creates a sudden sense of fear, followed by quick relief, making people more compliant. Imagine someone says, "You're in big trouble." Just kidding. But hey, could you do me a favor? That emotional roller coaster leaves the brain disoriented and more likely to say yes. Used in interrogations, marketing, and sometimes humor, the fear then relief trick is disarming in more ways than one. 24. The Zeigarnik effect. Tasks left incomplete stay more active in our minds than those we've finished. That's the Zeigarnik effect. It's why cliffhangers work so well, why unfinished goals keep you up at night, and why to-do lists feel strangely satisfying. The brain wants closure. Writers, app designers, and advertisers use this to keep you engaged, itching to come back for more. 25. The social proof illusion. You walk by two restaurants. One is full of people, the other is empty. Which do you choose? Most people pick the full one, assuming the crowd knows something they don't. This is social proof. The idea that if others are doing something, it must be right. It's why fake reviews, laugh tracks, and tip jars with a few dollars already inside work so well. Our brains are wired to follow the herd. 26. The framing effect. Two doctors describe a surgery. One says it has a 90% survival rate. The other says it has a 10% mortality rate. They're saying the same thing, but your emotional reaction changes dramatically based on the framing. The framing effect shows how context and wording shape decision-making. We're not just reacting to facts, but to how those facts are presented. Politicians, marketers, and even lawyers use this to influence perception without changing the truth. 27. The availability heuristic. We judge the likelihood of something based on how easily we can recall examples. If you've just seen a plane crash on the news, you might overestimate the danger of flying. If you know someone who got a rare illness, you might suddenly fear it more than common threats. This is the availability heuristic, the brain's shortcut that makes vivid, recent, or emotional memories feel more statistically relevant than they really are. 28. The illusory truth effect. Repeat a lie often enough, and people start to believe it. This is the illusory truth effect. Repetition increases familiarity, and familiarity breeds belief. It doesn't matter how smart you are. This trick works on everyone. It's why slogans, propaganda, and rumors are repeated over and over again. The brain equates familiarity with accuracy. It's a flaw in our mental wiring that can be exploited by anyone looking to manipulate perception. 29. The hot-cold empathy gap. In a calm state, it's easy to say you'll eat healthy, save money, or avoid certain behaviors. But when you're emotional, angry, scared, or craving something, those promises evaporate. This disconnect is the hot-cold empathy gap. We have trouble predicting how we'll act when we're in a different emotional state. It explains impulsive decisions, regret, and broken resolutions. Understanding this gap can help us make better plans, knowing our future selves may not be as rational as we hope. 30. The decoy effect. A restaurant has two wines. One is $10, the other $30. Most people choose the cheaper one, but then a third option is added, a $25 wine. Now, more people buy the $30 wine. That's the decoy effect. The middle option makes the most expensive one seem like a better deal, even though nothing about it has changed. This principle shapes pricing in stores, subscriptions, and even political choices. 31. The placebo effect. Take a sugar pill, but believe it's medicine, and suddenly your symptoms improve. The placebo effect shows how belief alone can trigger real physiological responses. It's not all in your head. Brain chemistry, hormones, and even immune responses can be affected by expectation. Placebos have been shown to relieve pain, improve sleep, and even reduce depression. It's a testament to the power of the mind over the body. 32. The nocebo effect. The dark side of the placebo is the nocebo effect. When a harmless substance causes negative symptoms because you expect something bad. If you think a food will make you sick, it might. If you're told about a drug's side effects, you're more likely to experience them, even on a sugar pill. The mind can create illness just as it can create healing. Expectation is everything. 33. The Barnum effect. You're a unique person, but you also value relationships. You're independent but sometimes insecure. You've experienced recent changes and you're searching for direction. Sound familiar? That's the Barnum effect. Our tendency to believe vague general statements are uniquely tailored to us. It's why horoscopes, fortune tellers, and personality tests feel eerily accurate, even when they're not. 34. The just world hypothesis. Many people believe that the world is fundamentally fair, that good things happen to good people, and bad things happen to those who deserve it. This is the just world hypothesis, and it can be comforting, but also dangerous. It leads people to blame victims, dismiss inequality, and ignore random chance. Reality isn't always fair, but the mind craves justice, even if it has to invent it. 35. The frequency illusion. Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. You learn a new word, and suddenly you see it everywhere. This isn't a glitch in the universe. It's your brain on frequency illusion. Once something enters your awareness, your mind starts noticing it more often. It's not happening more. You're just paying attention. This can make coincidences feel like fate, or patterns appear where none exist. 36. The endowment effect. Once something is yours, you value it more, regardless of its actual worth. This is the endowment effect. People demand more money to give something up than they would pay to acquire it. Even trivial items like coffee mugs or pens gain value simply by being owned. It's why decluttering is hard, why we hang on to useless stuff, and why letting go can feel like loss. 37. The gambler's fallacy. A roulette wheel has landed on black 6 times in a row. You think red is due. That's the gambler's fallacy. the mistaken belief that past random events influence future ones. But each spin is independent. The odds haven't changed. This illusion fuels slot machines, risky investments, and superstitions. It's the mind trying to impose order on chaos. 38. The peak end rule. We judge experiences not by how long they lasted, but by how they felt at the peak and how they ended. This is the peak end rule. A vacation with one amazing day at the end feels better than a longer but more consistent trip. A painful procedure with a gentler ending is remembered more kindly. Our memories are edited stories, not full recordings, and the ending matters most. 39. The over-justification effect. When you reward someone for doing something they already enjoy, their motivation can actually decrease. This is the over-justification effect. External rewards, like money or praise, can undermine intrinsic motivation. Artists, students, and even children can lose passion when it becomes about payment, not pleasure. It's a reminder to protect joy for its own sake. 40. The projection bias. We assume others think, feel, and act like we do. This is projection bias. If you hate spicy food, you might assume your guests will too. If you're tired, the world seems more sluggish. It's the inability to fully grasp how different others are from us. Empathy requires breaking this illusion. 41. The spotlight. Manipulation. Imagine this. You trip in public. Embarrassed, you assume everyone noticed. But the truth is, most people didn't see. Or if they did, they forgot seconds later. This is the spotlight effect, a psychological illusion where we overestimate how much others notice our actions, appearance, or mistakes. We live in our own spotlight, assuming we're center stage in everyone else's mental theater. In reality, people are wrapped up in their own spotlight, just like we are. Marketers use this trick to make you feel seen or judged, implying that others are watching, admiring, or envying. Advertisements show people turning heads as someone walks by in a new outfit, or being admired for using a certain product. This creates the illusion that choices are constantly evaluated by others, making us more self-conscious and more likely to buy into the image being sold. Understanding the spotlight effect can be liberating. It reminds us that most people aren't paying as much attention to us as we think, and that's actually a good thing. 42. The self-serving bias. When things go right, we credit ourselves. When they go wrong, we blame others or external circumstances. This is the self-serving bias, a powerful psychological defense mechanism that protects our ego. If you ace a test, it's because you studied hard. If you fail, it was the unfair questions or poor lighting in the room. This mental trick helps preserve our self-esteem and sense of control. In relationships, this bias can become toxic. Each partner may see themselves as the reasonable one and the other as the problem. At work, teams fall apart when members inflate their contributions and deflect responsibility for setbacks. Recognizing the self-serving bias is key to growth. True maturity comes from accepting credit and blame in proportion, and realizing we're not always the hero of the story. 43. The fear of missing out. FOMO. You're scrolling social media and see your friends at a party you didn't attend. Suddenly, your evening seems dull and empty, even if you were perfectly content a moment ago. This is FOMO, or the fear of missing out. It's rooted in our evolutionary wiring. Humans survived through social inclusion. Being left out once meant real danger. Today, it's psychological. We're bombarded with curated highlights of other people's lives, making us question our choices and experiences. FOMO drives impulsive behavior, last-minute purchases, overcommitting to events, or staying glued to screens. Marketers exploit this with limited-time deals. Only two left: messages and flash sales. It triggers anxiety that we might lose something valuable, socially, financially, or emotionally. Combating FOMO requires grounding. Remind yourself, people post the best 5 seconds of their day, not the full 24 hours. You're not missing out. You're just not seeing the whole picture. 44. The groupthink trap. You're in a meeting. Everyone agrees with a bad idea. You sense it's wrong, but don't speak up. No one wants to be the one to disrupt harmony. This is groupthink, when the desire for consensus overrides critical thinking. In environments where dissent is discouraged, people conform, even when the decision may be flawed or dangerous. Groupthink played a role in major historical failures, from military blunders to corporate collapses. It's fueled by hierarchy, pressure, and a false sense of unity. This mind game is dangerous because it masquerades as cooperation, but true collaboration requires disagreement, challenge, and debate. To resist groupthink, leaders must encourage questions, welcome different views, and create space for safe disagreement. 45. The illusion of superiority. Most people believe they're above average in intelligence, kindness, and driving ability. Statistically, that's impossible. This is the illusion of superiority, also called the above-average effect. It's a cognitive bias that inflates our self-image. Why? Because it feels good. It gives us confidence, motivation, and self-assurance. But it also blinds us to flaws and stifles growth. The danger is subtle. When we believe we're already better than others, we stop listening, learning, or improving. We dismiss criticism and ignore feedback. Overcoming this illusion requires humility. It means acknowledging that everyone has blind spots, including us, and that growth often starts with admitting where we fall short. 46. The authority bias. Two people give you advice. One is wearing a lab coat or a suit with a prestigious title. The other isn't. You're more likely to trust the one in uniform. This is the authority bias. Our tendency to trust and obey figures of perceived authority, even when they're wrong. The infamous Milgram experiment showed how far this goes. Ordinary people delivered what they believed were lethal electric shocks to others, just because a man in a white coat told them to. This bias isn't just theoretical. It appears in marketing, doctor recommended, expert approved, and in politics, religion, and education. Awareness is your shield. Authority should be earned through wisdom, not appearance. Question credentials. Seek evidence and trust, but verify. 47. The curse of knowledge. Once you know something, it's hard to imagine not knowing it. This is the curse of knowledge, a cognitive bias that makes it difficult to teach or explain ideas to others who don't share your background. Experts often struggle to simplify concepts, forgetting how complex they once seemed. Teachers, bosses, and leaders assume others get it when they really don't. This mind game affects communication, education, and leadership. To fight it, slow down. Break ideas into simpler parts. Empathize with what it's like to be a beginner again. 48. The cognitive load trick. When your brain is juggling too much information, it makes worse decisions. This is known as cognitive load, the mental effort required to process and retain information at any given time. Studies show that when people are distracted by numbers, noise, stress, or pressure, they're more likely to choose unhealthy foods, fall for scams, or miss important details. This trick is weaponized in high-pressure sales tactics, time-limited offers, and manipulative environments. The goal? Overwhelm your brain just enough that you choose impulsively rather than carefully. To counter it, pause. Take a breath. Make space. Decisions made in calm clarity are almost always better. 49. The commitment and consistency principle. Once we commit to something, publicly or even privately, we feel pressure to act consistently with that choice. This is the commitment and consistency principle. In one study, people were asked to place a small sign in their window. Later, they were asked to put up a giant, obnoxious billboard. Those who agreed to the small request were significantly more likely to accept the large one. This trick is subtle. Signing a petition, saying yes to a free trial, or liking a brand online creates micro-commitments that lead to larger behavior shifts. The power here lies in identity. Once we see ourselves as a certain kind of person, generous, eco-conscious, tech-savvy, we act in ways that reinforce that self-image. 50. The temporal discounting trap. Would you rather have $100 today or $150 in a month? Most people choose the smaller, immediate reward. This is temporal discounting, the tendency to devalue rewards the further away they are in time. This trick affects savings, diet, exercise, and almost every long-term goal. It's why instant gratification wins so often, even when we know better. To combat this, Visualize your future self. Give them a name. Picture their needs. When the future feels real, we make better decisions for it. 51. The in-group versus out-group bias. At our core, humans are tribal. We form groups based on shared identity, race, nationality, religion, fandoms, even brands. This instinct creates a powerful and often invisible divide between us and them. This is the in-group, out-group bias, one of the most pervasive psychological forces in human behavior. We favor those in our in-group, seeing them as more trustworthy, intelligent, and moral, while being suspicious, dismissive, or even hostile toward those outside it. Studies show this bias affects hiring, policing, courtroom decisions, and even empathy. We literally feel less pain when someone from the out-group is harmed. It's deeply biological, but also deeply modifiable. What makes this bias so dangerous is how subtly it works. It influences who we listen to, who we trust, and who we dismiss. It's the root of discrimination, polarization, and group conflict. But understanding it is the first step in breaking it. When we recognize our biases and broaden our definition of who's in our tribe, we unlock empathy, unity, and cooperation. In a globalized world, expanding our in-group might be the most powerful shift we can make. 52. The fear appeal. Manipulation. You're at risk. This could happen to you. Protect yourself. Now. Fear grabs attention. It's a survival mechanism, hardwired to keep us safe. But it's also one of the most manipulable emotions in the human brain. Fear appeal is a persuasive tactic that uses threat, danger, or loss to provoke action. Politicians use it to push agendas. Advertisers use it to sell products. News outlets use it to boost clicks. From act now before it's too late to don't let this happen to you. Fear creates urgency and bypasses rational thought. The psychology is simple. Fear narrows focus. It shuts down long-term thinking and pushes us into survival mode. When afraid, we act quickly, not always wisely. But the key to effective fear appeals is offering a clear solution. Without it, fear paralyzes. With it, fear motivates. Being aware of this tactic gives you a moment to pause and ask, is this real danger or manufactured urgency? Is someone trying to help me or control me? 53. The ostrich effect. When faced with uncomfortable truths, like debt, illness, or climate change, many people bury their heads in the sand. This is the ostrich effect, named after the mythical idea that ostriches avoid danger by sticking their heads in the ground. They don't, but we do. It's a form of avoidance coping, where we ignore negative information rather than confront it. Financial advisors see this when people stop checking their bank balances. Doctors see it when patients skip appointments. Governments see it when citizens downplay long-term crises. This effect isn't laziness, it's emotional overload. When threats feel too big, our brain's protective mechanism kicks in. Ignore it, and maybe it'll go away. But growth, personal, emotional, and societal, only happens when we turn toward discomfort, not away. Facing reality can be painful, but it's the only path to true change. 54. The reciprocity rule. You're at a store. A clerk offers you a free sample. You weren't planning to buy anything, but now you feel an urge to reciprocate. Maybe you make a small purchase. This is the reciprocity principle, a deeply ingrained rule of human behavior. When someone gives to us, we feel compelled to give back. It's one of the strongest social norms across cultures. In ancient societies, gifts created alliances. In modern life, it drives everything from tipping to marketing to diplomacy. Salespeople exploit it by giving free gifts. Charities send return address labels. Social invites create pressure to invite back. Reciprocity builds bonds, but also creates obligations. The key to navigating this mind game is awareness. Generosity is beautiful when it's genuine, but when it's transactional, we must pause and ask, am I giving because I want to, or because I feel trapped? 55. The stereotype threat. You walk into a room. You're the only woman in a math competition. You're reminded, subtly or directly, of the stereotype that women aren't as good at math. Suddenly, your performance drops. This is stereotype threat, a phenomenon where people underperform when they fear confirming a negative stereotype about their group. It's not about ability, it's about stress, anxiety, and self-doubt. The brain, focused on disproving the stereotype, becomes overloaded. Memory suffers. Focus wanes. Studies have shown stereotype threat affects women in STEM, Black students in academic settings, older adults in memory tests, and countless others. But there's a flip side. When the stereotype is removed, or when people are reminded of positive identities, performance improves. Stereotype threat is a hidden force, shaping outcomes in education, work, and beyond. Fighting it means changing environments, not people. 56. The false consensus effect. You believe your opinions are reasonable, common sense, and shared by most people. Chances are, they're not. This is the false consensus effect, our tendency to overestimate how much others agree with us. We assume our views are normal, and those who disagree are misinformed, extreme, or irrational. This bias fuels political polarization, workplace conflict, and online arguments. It leads us to surround ourselves with like-minded people, reinforcing our bubble. The internet, through algorithms, makes this worse, creating echo chambers where we mistake agreement for truth. The cure: exposure, deliberate engagement with opposing views, curiosity over judgment. The goal isn't to agree, it's to understand. 57. The repetition. Illusion. Say something once. It's new. Say it 3 times. It feels familiar. Say it 10 times. It feels true. This is the repetition illusion, closely related to the illusory truth effect. The more often we hear something, the more likely we are to believe it, even if it's false. Politicians use it. Propagandists perfect it. Advertisers rely on it. From brand slogans to conspiracy theories, repetition is power. Why? Does it work? The brain equates fluency, how easily something is processed, with accuracy. If it feels right, we trust it. But truth is not a matter of frequency. It's a matter of evidence. 58. The belief perseverance trap. Even when presented with clear, logical evidence that disproves a belief, people often cling to it. This is belief perseverance, the stubborn, irrational refusal to let go of false ideas. It's why conspiracy theorists double down after being debunked, why people cling to myths despite contrary facts. It's a psychological defense. Admitting we were wrong threatens identity, ego, and certainty. Belief perseverance is strongest when beliefs are tied to identity, political, religious, or personal. When challenged, we don't just feel corrected, we feel attacked. To overcome it, we must learn to separate beliefs from self-worth, to see changing our mind not as weakness, but as strength. 59. The emotional contagion effect. You walk into a room where everyone is laughing. Soon, you're smiling too, even if you don't know the joke. This is emotional contagion, the subconscious spread of feelings through facial expressions, voice tone, posture, and behavior. Emotions are social signals and highly contagious. One person's anxiety can infect a team. One person's calm can settle a crowd. This effect drives everything from workplace culture to viral trends. Understanding emotional contagion gives us 2 superpowers: to protect ourselves from toxic energy and to be the source of calm, kindness, and courage. 60. The narrative bias. We crave stories. We need beginnings, middles, and endings. But real life isn't always so neat. The narrative bias is our tendency to impose structure on chaos, to simplify events into tidy arcs, hero versus villain, cause and effect, problem and solution. It helps us make sense of the world, but also distorts it. We overlook randomness, ignore complexity, and resist ambiguity. We rewrite memories to fit the story we want to tell. This bias is why we fall for conspiracy theories, oversimplify history, and judge others harshly. But it's also why stories heal, inspire, and teach. The key is balance. Embrace the power of story, but remember, not everything in life fits a script. As you sit in stillness, reflecting on what you've just heard, a question might arise. Why do these psychological patterns exist in the first place? It's because the human brain, as miraculous as it is, wasn't built for truth. It was built for survival. Long before cities and technology, we lived in forests and plains, hunting, gathering, avoiding predators. We didn't have time to rationalize every decision. We needed fast shortcuts, rules of thumb. Is that sound dangerous? Is that person trustworthy? Is that food safe? Those who hesitated often didn't survive. So evolution gifted us with cognitive biases, tools to navigate danger, secure resources, and stay bonded to others. But in our modern world, these tools are still running, often unchecked, in a reality they weren't designed for. Imagine your brain like a set of old maps, drawn for a very different landscape. They're mostly useful, but every now and then they lead you somewhere confusing, misleading, even dangerous. That's where awareness becomes power. Because once you see the illusion, you're less likely to fall for it. Once you understand the game, you can stop being the pawn and start becoming the player. And it's not just about protecting yourself. Understanding these patterns makes you more compassionate toward others. You begin to see that people aren't always irrational. They're often just trapped in invisible scripts. Scripts of fear, of habit, of identity. You recognize the anxious friend caught in the spotlight effect, the partner caught in cognitive dissonance, the co-worker who's convinced their view is the only normal one, lost in false consensus. You see yourself in all of them because you've played those roles too, but now you're stepping back, watching, learning. And from that place of distance comes something extraordinary: peace. Because the more you understand your mind, the less it controls you. Thoughts lose their grip, fears soften, reactions become responses. You start choosing your story instead of letting it be chosen for you. So breathe. Let your mind settle. Let all the ideas, biases, effects, illusions float away like leaves in a stream. You don't need to hold them all. You've already absorbed more than you realize. And know this: awareness is not perfection. You'll still fall for these tricks. We all do. But now you'll notice. And that noticing is everything. Thank you for spending this time here. Thank you for exploring the corners of the mind. And wherever you are, on your couch, in your bed, under the stars, I hope you find rest in the knowing and power in the awareness. Sleep well.